Good evening, everybody. Night 19 on the Elul Screen Challenge. On our way to Rosh Hashanah, getting closer each day, reading passages from Inner Work, Avodat Hashem. Page 33. The sages say in a midrash, quote, 3 days before the coming of Mashiach, 3 days before the coming of Mashiach, Eliyahu the prophet will go to the top of a mountain and blow the shofar to announce the coming of the redemption. End quote. People imagine Eliyahu the prophet standing in the forest on the mountaintop blowing the shofar. The Baal Sulam explains, however, that the coming of Eliyahu means simply the revelation of the secrets of the Torah, the Kabbalah, to the masses. The Baal Sulam explains, however, that the coming of Eliyahu means simply the revelation of the secrets of the Torah, the Kabbalah, to the masses. This is what heralds the redemption. The Kabbalah becoming known in the world is called, in coded language, quote, the sound of the shofar, end quote. 3 days hints that the revelation is drawn down from the highest levels of the upper three sfirot, Keter, Chokhmah, Bina. So, there's a midrash that says 3 days before the coming of the Mashiach, Eliyahu the prophet, Eliyahu HaNavi, will go to the top of a mountain and blow the shofar to announce the coming of the redemption, right? So if we take that at face value, if we take that literally, then people imagine Eliyahu standing in the forest on the mountain top blowing the shofar. But the Baal Sulam explains that the coming of Eliyahu is a code word. It really means the revelation of the secrets of the Torah, meaning the Kabbalah, to the masses. The revelation of the secrets of the Torah, the secrets of Kabbalah to the masses. This is actually what heralds the redemption. The Kabbalah becoming known in the world. The Kabbalah becoming known in the world, which is what's happening in our days, is coded language for the sound of the shofar. So, we're in that period of the coming of Mashiach as the Kabbalah is becoming known throughout the world. And that announces the coming of the redemption, God willing, in our time soon. When God's oneness becomes revealed, God's goodness becomes revealed in every circumstance of reality. When God's oneness becomes revealed, God's goodness becomes revealed in every circumstance of reality. So what does that mean, God's goodness? So when God's oneness is revealed, then we see clearly. We see everything clearly. We see everything that's happened and everything that's happening with clear eyes. And we understand through the revelation of God's oneness how every circumstance of reality has God's goodness being revealed in it, which is very, very hard to contemplate from this level of consciousness, how horrible things like the Holocaust, how all the terrible things your mind can imagine, that in every circumstance of reality, God's goodness can become revealed. So we have to already understand that from where we're standing and where we're looking, it's not possible to understand this concept. but that there's a place inside of emunah, of embodied faith, that we can maybe understand the possibility of such a reality. When God's oneness becomes revealed, God's goodness becomes revealed in every circumstance of reality. Again, also context might help here, because there's several ways to look at it. I mean, we can look at it through every circumstance in the past is revealed of God's glory, or we can look at it as God's goodness from this point forward becomes revealed in every circumstance of reality. I think my understanding is that we just we see clearly, we understand what's happening and why it's happening. We see through to the root of all phenomena, and how even what looks on the surface, what appears to be void of goodness, has within it, at its root, at its source, the goodness of God. The goodness meaning connection with the purpose of creation, with God's inherent plan for humanity and life. When we're connected to that oneness, we have direct access to an awareness, an actualization of God's plan to give humanity the greatest pleasure imaginable of union with the divine. And I imagine that we see as well, like, that all negativity, all quote unquote evil comes from a place of lack of connection to the divine, comes from a place of lack of light. And that is not evil inherently, but it's a lack of goodness, it's a lack of God. And when God is revealed, then all of that goodness is also revealed. Let me know if that resonates, if you have a different thought, if you have questions. It becomes revealed that all the obstacles are not obstacles, but rather the opposite. They are vessels for the supernal light. It becomes revealed that all the obstacles are not obstacles, but rather the opposite. They are vessels for the supernal light. So that too is another, it's also similar to the concept of I can't think of it at the moment, but something along the lines of the right, what we think is in the way is not in the way, it is the way. Right? That what we conceive of as obstacles from this point of view are not actually obstacles. What they are is the potential for the light to be revealed. They're vessels for the supernal light, right? So that which looks and appears to be an obstacle or in the way of revelation is really the opposite. It is a vessel for the supernal light. It is the possibility, the potential for that obstacle to be filled with the supernal light, for that place that right now is void of supernal light to be filled and revealed within as the supernal light, as its place in the expression and extension of God. Right, obstacles, what's in the way, the things that are in the way right now are not actually, they're not actually in the way. They are the way. They are the vessels for supernal light. This is amazing. This really is that quote, right? It becomes revealed that the obstacles are not obstacles, but rather the opposite, right? So what is perceived to be an obstacle, what is perceived to be in the way, is the opposite. It is the way. Brilliant. They're the possibility, they're the potentiality for the light to be revealed in them. The remedy for selfishness is the divine light that is in the Torah. The remedy for selfishness is the divine light that is in the Torah. Right? So, very straightforward. The remedy for selfishness, for self-serving desire, is the divine light. The teachings of the Kabbalah that are in the Torah. The divine light of the revelation of God and God's plan and the purpose of creation. Spiritual experience is the gift, but it is not the giver of the gift. Those who desire the giver of the gift are not concerned with feeling the spiritual experience, but are concerned that their hearts be filled with love and awe of God. Spiritual experience is the gift. So when we have a spiritual experience, it is a gift. It is the gift. This spiritual experience of being united with God, of having the pleasure of feeling and receiving the revelation of God, of God's unity. But it is not the giver of the gift. It is not God. Those who desire the giver of the gift are not concerned with feeling the spiritual experience. They're not consumed and concerned with the pleasure that comes from the revelation of God's unity. But they're concerned with filling their hearts. They're concerned that their hearts be filled with love and awe of God, right? That they want, instead of just to experience the bliss of union, they are concerned that their hearts be filled with love for the giver of the gift. They're not concerned with the gift and the feeling of the spiritual bliss, but they want their hearts to be filled with love for the giver of the gift and awe for the giver of the gift. Right? So it's like not just receiving the bliss, but taking that next step to be like, whoa, there's a giver of this gift, and that's really where I have so much love for the giver of this gift, and I have so much awe for the giver of this gift, and that's really where my concern and my attention goes. Every detail that exists in the world was created to help us come to union with God. Every detail that exists in the world was created to help us come to union with God. Again, similar to the previous passage, that everything that is here, every detail of creation was created to help us to come to union with God, which again can seem like so illogical or antithetical to what we experience in life, that we see all of the tragedy that's taking place on the planet, and it feels like it's the opposite. It feels like it takes us away from coming into union with God. It takes us away from believing in God, right? Like, how many people lost their faith due to the Holocaust? How could God exist if God could allow such a thing to happen? And this is saying that every detail that exists in the world is actually created to help us come into union with God. It could help if we understood a little more about what detail means, pratim. What does it mean? Is it just details, again, of creation, of like literal creation itself? Or is it details that happen within creation, like the events of the world? It would be much simpler to imagine if it's just creation itself. But if it's the details within creation, the happenings of the world, then it becomes a bit more challenging. Every detail that exists in the world was created to help us come into union with God. Let me know your thoughts. Final passage. Reality is one, and God is enclosed in all of it. Reality is one, and God is enclosed and clothed in all of it. Reality is one, right? So reality is one. That underneath all of reality is an inherent unity that connects everything together. And in that unity, that is in that reality, that is where God is enclosed. God is clothed. The unity, which is God, is enclosed in reality. And the reality is one. When we reveal that oneness, we reveal God underneath it. We remove the barriers, the clothing that covers God, that keeps God hidden. When we reveal God's oneness, God's unity, the unity within all of reality, we reveal God at the center of that. That is God, the unity that pervades all of reality. Okay, have a wonderful evening and a wonderful day. We'll see you tomorrow.